All right, I gotta confess, whenever I look for a new movie to watch, one of the first things I check for is the IMDb rating. Now, every rating system has its flaws, and the number itself is a bit deceiving as traditionally horror movies don't rate as high as most other films. So basically, what I look for is a movie somewhere around the 5 out of 10 mark. Higher than 5 means probably has potential, lower than 5 means it's questionable, lower than 4, and I just usually avoid it. And this movie checks in currently at 5.8. Normally, a horror movie rated that high, I really enjoy. For instance, The Vigil was rated 5.8, and I loved that. But boy, IMDb really did me wrong this time. Look Away is a 2018 horror movie about a shy girl who finds out she was once a twin and begins to see this twin in a mirror. She's then convinced to trade places with said twin in order for her to fix her life. This movie felt like someone had thought up a bunch of individual scenes and then just kind of created some story to connect them all together. And that may sound a little reductive because, there are some scripts that are actually made that way. But I mean this in a way where it just doesn't feel like the actions and scenes of the characters connect together in an organic way across the story. Instead, it was entirely scene focused versus character or story focused, if that makes any sense. Now, the story itself centers on Maria, who is a very shy 17-year-old girl going to a wealthy private school, and she seems to only have one friend. But the first thing that we learn about her is that she does have a bully. Now, I get that bullies in school are a thing, but there doesn't seem to be any reason for why she gets bullied. Like, she doesn't seem to have any specific thing that stands out as a target. Normally, there'd be something that you could point to and say, well, the bully is doing this because of X, Y, or Z, or the girl is considered a this or a that, and that kind of threatens him in some way. But nothing. Like, it's not an income thing, or a looks thing, or a personality thing, or a family thing. I mean, as a matter of fact, later in the movie, the bully talks about how he really admires her dad, who's a famous plastic surgeon. So why bully her? Like, this bully just kind of bullies this girl in a vacuum and no one else because, well, I guess she just needed to have a bully. So anyway, one day she finds an old ultrasound picture of her and her twin that was taken while they were in the womb. And shortly thereafter, her reflection in the mirror begins to talk back to her. Now, her reflection says that she can fix everything that is wrong in Maria's life if she just gives control over to her. Now, Maria eventually does this, and this new personality comes forward and causes all sorts of problems. Now, this is an interesting premise, and one that attracted me to the movie in the first place. And there are a lot of ideas and moments in this film that I think are really solid concepts in general. But man, I've just found them to be handled very poorly throughout the movie. Now, I can see wanting to do a psychological journey of this girl, like trying to get control of her life and turning to either the dark recesses of her personality, or if you want to go more literal, give control of herself over to this other being. But either way, it could have been an interesting dive. But everything stays extremely surface level in what they do. Like, it plays out exactly as you would think. The shy girl that doesn't want to wear makeup, eat certain foods, or interact with people, all of a sudden becomes more confident, starts to getting respect, and the things that she wants, the more she takes control. But that control revolves around her not really doing much. It really just boils down to just looking at everyone, and then she, steps in close to them seductively and whispers some line of dialogue, which somehow brings them to their knees. Like, that's kind of it. At least in the early going, it is. So what could have been like a tight, deep story ends up creating a lot of just loose story threads. The dad's a plastic surgeon who only sees his daughter as skin deep, and is probably cheating on his wife. The wife is still going through the trauma of losing her other child 17 years ago. Then there's the mystery of how she lost that child in the first place, which is questionable plausibility at best. Maria and her revealing her inner desires through the possession of her twin or personality, depending on which direction you want to go. But none of it is explored in a satisfactory way. It's all just done as a collection of flat revenge scenes. Like, there were so many times while watching this movie that I thought to myself, why is he or she doing that? Like, for what purpose? All right, let me give you an example. Now, this movie is set in the rich upstate part of New York. Now, for some reason, their end of the year dance is an ice skating one. Maria has lived her whole life in this town, and hockey and ice skating seems to be a big part of the local culture. Yet, for some reason, Maria has never been on skates. Also, with her being both shy and antisocial, it makes sense that she does not want to go to this dance. But then, inexplicably, she kind of just decides to go for some reason. She then asks her friend to teach her how to skate, which fails completely. But then, despite all that, for some reason, she decides to go to the dance anyway. She then gets to the dance, and after skating with her friend's boyfriend, she trips and falls down, and immediately proceeds to get dragged around the ice mercilessly by the bully. All I could think of while watching this is, where the hell are all the adults? Like, this isn't something where the kids have cornered her in another part of the school or at the dance. This is center ice. Nobody comes to her aid. Like, that is bananas. It's like the writer just wanted a bully scene where it really pushes her over the edge in order for her to give in to her twins taking over. But it just feels so out of place. Like, I get they needed motivation to explain why eventually this darker version of Maria starts killing people, but man, like, why did any of these people do what they did? Also, not for nothing, but the method in which she ends up actually starting to kill these people is downright silly. Now, to be honest here, I thought about kind of going beat by beat on this movie and really diving in and dissecting every crazy character choice, which there are a lot. But something really held me back that made me just not want to spend any more time in this movie than I actually had to. Frankly, I almost didn't review it because of this reason, and went a long way in me giving the grade that I gave it. And that reason is because of the sexual aspect of this film, and specifically as it relates to the lead character of Maria. Now, it's told to us that she is 17 years old, soon to be 18, and I know that the actress who plays her, India Isley, apparently was 24 at the time of shooting. Okay, that's normal in movies, like nothing crazy there. However, the issue is that they made this girl look like she was 15. And that wouldn't be a problem, except there are several nude or sexual scenes involving her in this film. Now, I get that making the audience feel uncomfortable and unnerved is part of film and really art in general, and I accept that. And they did a similar thing in a very shocking scene in one of my favorite movies, Let the Right One In, where it's designed to make the audience squirm. Now, I know this is kind of weird timing given the fact that there's this crazy pushback on sex scenes in movies recently, which I just think is ridiculous. But what I didn't like here is that these scenes didn't seem to be played in order to make the audience feel uncomfortable, but instead seemed like the intent was to make them desirable and fetishized, like some kind of a 90s sexual thriller. I mean, basically her entire personality when she is in twin mode is just a hypersexualized one. Everyone she encounters or disarms, she does so in a very sexual way, whether it's the bully, her best friend's boyfriend, her father, all of them. It's like no one thought of a different idea to manipulate people than through a sexual lens. And I gotta say, that just feels cheap and thin, and given how old she looks, just more distasteful than artistic, and that really bothered me. To be fair, overall, the movie has an interesting style, utilizing some good camera work, solid composition, and color palette as well, actually, to create a good atmosphere. It also teases an interesting premise and some decent performances. But the story just becomes a very flat, two-dimensional tale of revenge that hints at a deeper issue, but those issues are so ridiculous that they might as well not even been there. I mean, and then throw in this weird, voyeuristic fetishism, and I'd give this a hard pass. I'd give it a D, but let me know what you think.